Hello, let's look at several ways to define properties for a class. Properties can be left undefined. Here you can define a property with some default value. This is a string property. Properties can also use expression like concatenating two strings. Variable for, it's an example with the here doc expression. Variable 3, it's an expression that adds number 1 and number 2 and will become an integer variable with a default value of 3. Class properties can extract values from constants. Variable 5 is an array with two Boolean items. For variable 6, we have a string defined with the nowDoc methods. Invalid property declarations are properties that call a static method and properties that define a variable. Since version 7.4, you are able to add types for properties. For example, the user class will have an ID of type integer and a nullable string for name. Notice the question mark before the property type that describes the fact that this property can be nullable. Types can also be defined in the constructor and with the same question mark that will allow a null value. When defining an object of type user, you will be constrained to use the types defined by the constructor. In this example, we can see the null option. Writing getters and setters allow you to control the assignment of properties. For the class shape, we have the integer property number of sides and the string property called name. For each property, we have a method for setting the value and for extracting the value. The setter for the number of slides takes as a parameter an integer and sets that integer for the property number of slides. Notice that there's no return type, so we label the return as void. For the getter, the method doesn't have any parameters, but it sets the return type to integer, the type of the property we want to return. The getter retrieves the value from the property and returns it to whoever uses. The same thing happens for the set name method that takes a parameter as parameter as strings and assigns it to the name property of the class, and the getName method that will return a string, that is the property name. Let's also execute this. You will notice that accessing a property that was not instantiated will trigger an error. So this is happening because at line 87, we try to access the property get number of slides that was not previously set. If we edit the code and numbers of slides to 0, let's say, now the error should go away. This was an overview of different ways to set properties for classes. We looked into different types of default values, several invalid declarations, defining properties with types, and implementing getters and setters for the properties.